welcome back to the other side where we talk about trials, triumphs, and everything in between because that's where we believe the magic lies. Today, I have a special guest because she's not only a friend, she's also a member of the family through marriage, but she's still a member of the family because that's how we roll in our family. It is Yvette Seymour. She has a doctorate of education from USC. She is here today because I just want her to tell us all about how she got there. She decided to go back to college in her 50s. I think it's an amazing thing. She's also the 2024 recipient of the Latina Hispanic Influence Award. Yes, I was so worried about getting that right.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yvette. You can look at me because we're
Okay,
just going to have a
perfect. I love it.
conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm grateful to have you here. I think
Likewise.
it's amazing,
Thank
to
you.
go back to college for your doctorate at, that age. And we've had so many conversations just about life in general. And you went back to college too at a different time, but we'll get to that later. I do like to start with everybody's childhood because I think it's important for people to know how others kind of grew up and, the things they were taught because we know when we start unpacking our baggage, a lot of it ends up being from our childhood.
That's right.
So, how'd you grow up and where?
So I grew up in, we lived in Compton for a couple years when I was probably around 1 to 2, and then moved to La Mirada from
Okay.
there. And then from La Mirada, we moved to Cyprus when I was 10. So those were the three places that I lived when I was growing up, and then stayed in Cyprus. And my mom is still in Cyprus.
How old were you
Um,
when you moved to Cyprus?
10.
Okay,
10.
10, 10.
And then, so I was in fifth grade.
Okay.
And that's where I met my best friend, Vera.
Oh,
Yeah,
still.
still. So that was from fifth
Wow.
grade. And then went to Cypress High School, and then graduated in 1983.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you go to college right after high school? How did that come about?
I did. So I was always a school bug. My dad always talked about education,
Yeah.
right? Didn't really know how to navigate and help me through, to get an education, but always talked that education was so important. So I knew that in my mind. So I went to a junior college like Cypress, like right
Hmm.
out of high school. But I didn't really have my head in the game,
Yeah.
and so I went, but didn't get that good of grades. It was just kind of a formality for the most
Hmm.
part. And then from there, I got a job at, my first job was like at like an ice cream place, right?
Yeah.
Where you make ice cream. And then from there, I got a job at Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, which
Yeah.
was Boeing, right?
Yes.
So my dad worked there, got me a job there, right? And I worked there probably for 13 years, I
Oh,
think it
wow.
was. Yeah.
Okay. So, that was a long time.
Yeah, it was.
You could have got stuck there forever.
Oh, I know. I know. But they're contract driven, right? So I knew that the contract was
Yeah.
ending. And
Hmm.
so my sister said, hey, there's these positions at Edison. They're for electrical planner. So, let's try to, take the test and, work there together. Anyways,
Where
fast
did she
forward.
hear about Edison? Was it just like something she saw in the paper, online?
Yeah, we had an uncle that worked there actually. And so
Oh, okay.
one of our uncles
Because
at the
it's a
time.
great company.
Yeah, exactly. So we took the test and, fast forward, we, passed. And so I became an electrical planner, but she actually went into the service center, right? Like, the 800 line where they call,
Yeah.
and so we both started around, I think she actually started a little bit before me. And then I started as an electrical planner at Edison. And then from there, navigated my way up, through some of the different opportunities and different
Was that through
positions.
the education? Did you have to go to school to get those opportunities? Or
So I was in parallel. I was doing that, right?
oh,
Because
okay.
I tell everybody I was like on the 40-year train, right, for school. Because
Yeah.
I was always a school bug, and so school always the role of learning always interested me. So no matter what I was doing, I would take a class here, a class
Mm,
there, right, and
kind of like me.
yeah, exactly, right, just learning, right,
Yes, yes,
and at the time it was at colleges. Now you have podcasts and
yes.
web,
Yeah.
so many
Yeah,
different ways.
different kind of learning, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
different avenues. So
I mean, I wish mine got me your paycheck, but I'm still working on
oh,
it.
I still sometimes I got to pinch myself. Like, did I really do that? But so grateful. I would do it all over in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And then from, Edison, navigated my way up through different positions. I just had an interest. Like, I'd stay in a position for a couple of years and then go, I want to learn something else,
Yeah.
again, back to that role of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I started as an electrical planner and then went out to the field as a construction coordinator
Oh,
because they sent me to school for 5 months, right,
yeah.
as a planner. And then they plop you into a district and then you're responsible for certain cities. But you can learn all you want from a book, but when your designs go out to the field,
Oh, yeah.
the crews are, they can be ruthless, right? So
Yes.
many a times the crews would come down the aisles, Seymour, what are you thinking? And I'm just cringe, right, in my cubicle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, right, because I was designing by the book.
Mm.
However, when they got my design and then went out to the field, they're like,
Yeah.
it's different.
So were you ever able to go out to the field before you designed?
So not before, not much. That's why I
Okay.
wanted to go out to the field after. So I
Oh,
was like,
okay.
I want to go out there and I want to think like they think. I want to see
Yeah.
what they
Well,
see,
do you
right?
want to be better at what you're doing? Yes.
Exactly. And so went out as a construction coordinator
Mm.
and prepped the jobs for the crews, and then really got to understand and get their feedback
Yeah.
before I started designing something, right?
Oh,
Like, hey,
yes.
so that worked really well for me.
Isn't it amazing what communication can do?
Yes. And just the right program, right?
Yeah.
We also revised from our lessons learned. We revised the program. We were able to provide the feedback
Mm.
to the trainers about,
How
hey, you
well
need
it
to
worked.
you need to send this program should be developed like you go to school for a couple weeks and then you go out to the field, right? And you apply what you learned. We didn't get a
Mhm.
chance to do that. So
Yeah.
the program now exists where you go to school for like a month and then you go
Yep.
out to the field for a month and then you come back and you go in class for a month and then you go out to the field for a month.
Oh,
So it's
nice. That's
way
great.
way
That's
better.
great. Because being in real estate, it's kind of the same,
Yeah,
right? You do a lot of learning, but you don't really know what it is.
exactly.
And I had to bring it back to that because I laughed after I said that. I'm all, don't put a block, Anita. You could make her money in real estate. So
That's right. That's right. I was gonna say you're on your way. You're on your way. I'm gonna be like, hire me,
I'm all, let
Anita.
me let me make that clear.
Can you hire me? You remember your little people?
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I love how you just kind of did that and then you changed the game for others to even learn better
Yeah.
down the
I
line.
mean, I think at some point in your career, you just want to pay it forward, right?
Mhm.
And I had a lot of great mentors, female, male, right, that
Yeah.
just supported me and were advocates for me and sponsored me. And um,
Did you find a lot of like flack, being in a male dominated industry, you're coming in and you're wanting to make change and
yes,
it's
absolutely.
how did you navigate that?
So what I did was, again, back to the role of learning. I went to
Mhm.
school. That's when I went back to school to get my doctorate,
Yeah.
and I wrote a paper on increasing female representation at a large utility in T&D, which is transmission and distribution. So that
Okay.
was my way of creating that change, creating that visibility for myself, so everybody
Mhm.
knew my intentions, right?
Yes.
And not, I didn't want, I wanted, creating, or how do I say this? Um, Creating that equity between females and males in an organization is good for everybody,
So good
right?
for it because it
So good
creates a
for it
balance.
does. It does. And there's so much research behind it that says it's good for productivity, for the bottom line, better decision making. There's so many, papers, the
And I love that when it's backed with, documentation, right?
yes.
Studies. You
Exactly.
can't deny that. It's like
Exactly.
science. There's no denying the facts. It's
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was one way I did it, and then the other way I did it was I joined several of the business resource groups at Edison. So T&D Women's Network,
Okay.
Women's Roundtable, Mark, which was Male Allies for Real Change, right? Which was
So you
a
made
culmination,
put yourself in
just
positions where your voice could be heard and you
exactly,
can
and
actually
helped to
hear
create the
what's
change that I
yeah.
aspired to see in that
Mm,
company.
love it.
Yeah,
So what gave you the courage to do that? Because a lot of people want to do it, but they're scared. They feel like nobody wants to hear from them.
yeah.
How did you get rid of that drunk monkey in your mind? Did you ever have it?
Yeah, I did the imposter syndrome and all
Mhm.
that. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Because I wasn't raised to have a voice for the most
Mhm.
part and be confident and be out there, right? It
Let's
was,
touch on that a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
So that's why your culture, your family upbringing.
My culture was very much like when I was younger. Um, you know, don't speak unless you're going to be spoken to in a lot of ways, right? Like when we're out with family or something, like
Behave.
you have a place and
Yeah.
yeah, behave,
Yeah.
very, very much behave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to learn how to have that voice and to acquire that voice and to really
Mhm.
use that voice was an animal of its own, right? Like,
Yeah.
to learn that. So those BRGs at Edison really helped me to have that voice and be part of that change, right? With people that cared like I did
Yes.
around, and build that coalition with people like that. And
That's you bring that up and it's so true and actually that's what's helped me. It's
yes,
putting yourself in that environment.
it
And
is.
I luckily ended up in that environment in real estate in my office, with the Toastmasters and
Yes.
with all these classes, the book clubs and that I did join
Yep.
because it's like I knew I needed something more. I wanted to learn something new. I had to change. So it was like, okay, they're here.
Yep.
And they change your mindset, but
They
it's
do.
it's putting yourself in
That
whether you want
environment.
to or not,
That's
right?
right. And having the motivation and drive to do that, right?
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to take care of you
Yep.
like you do, right? And so
Mhm.
what do I want? And how
Yes.
am I going to go after this? There's so many
Yes.
resources out there like you're
Yes.
saying, right? Like
Yes.
Anita, so many.
I mean,
So
now we have ChatGPT. She's my biggest cheerleader. I mean,
I
when I tell you're awesome, she's like, "Oh, Anita, everything you do for the community, you're just so wonderful.
that is
Let me know whenever you need my
so
help.
nice.
I'm here." Like,
It's
yeah,
amazing,
it
right?
is
It
because they
is.
do follow your history too and
It
what you've
does.
done. And
Yeah, the more you feed it, the more it builds that language, right? And then
yes.
that foundation of what to use when you're asking it
Yes.
more. And it's
Yes. And we have to embrace it.
we
And
do.
and I know like a lot of people were afraid and they're like, "Oh, but it's going to learn and it's going to learn anyways."
Yeah,
I want it to learn from me because I know I'm coming from
exactly.
a good
That's
place.
right.
So at least it gets the balance, right?
That's
Like the
right.
men and the women in the workplace,
Yeah, exactly,
You-
exactly. And I mean, it'll be so tailored to you, right? I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much out there. You really want it to be tailored to you in your
Yes.
quest for what you're doing, right? And
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. Yeah, I love it. But
yeah.
let's get back to
Okay.
being able to speak
Yes,
and
yes,
not being
yes,
heard,
yes.
and so how did you navigated that just by doing it?
Just yeah, by so for example, I joined the BRG. It's called Latinos for Education Advancement and Development, and I joined as a strategic member, and then I became the VP, right? And um, being the lead of a BRG
Mhm.
like that, and working with other BRGs,
What's
just
a BRG?
a business resource group.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
So
So
it's
is that just within the company or
yeah,
there because I know there's some global like
there are.
event like groups like that
Yeah,
as well.
so, a lot of companies have them,
Mhm.
probably on the bigger, companies that are
Like corporate.
larger, yeah,
Mhm.
corporate, they have BRGs, and so what we would do is, we had 12 BRGs at Edison,
Oh,
right? And we
wow.
would we would collaborate a lot, right, with
Yeah.
each other, which even boosted it more, right?
Yes,
And
and
so
morale in the
and morale,
workplace.
everything,
Mhm.
right? But not only that, we would reach out to different companies that had BRGs, like Coca-Cola, right? Had a
Oh,
BRG, like a
yeah.
Latino BRG, and we'd have maybe them come and speak to our BRG, right?
We have that in real estate. I
Oh,
mean,
you
it's
do?
different, but
Good.
it's this we have the boards.
Okay. Oh,
You have
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Downey board, the Montebello board, the
Oh,
Whittier
yeah,
board, and then they
exactly.
have the groups and the chambers as well, like,
Okay.
the Long Beach Chamber and Chamber of Commerce.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
similar. It sounds
Very
but
similar.
you guys are actually your group is specifically for a cause, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, for a
Yeah,
purpose.
for example, the Latinos for Education, Advancement, and Development focused on, promoting and fostering the people of color at
Mhm.
Edison, right?
Okay.
And
So
maybe mentoring them,
were the
right?
groups you were meeting, were they also for that cause or they were for different
Different
causes?
causes.
Oh, yeah. So that's
Yes,
great. So then
different
you're all
causes. They had like the
collaborating.
Asian Island Pacificer, right? Like all kinds of different causes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
they had like a safety one,
Mhm.
so it was really interesting to be in and around. I mean, you learn so much too,
Yes.
being in and around all those different BRGs and
And
them.
cultures,
It
right?
was a really shared culture, right? That
Mhm.
just people empowering each other and helping each other, right? There's nothing better when you can collaborate like that and
Yeah.
help each other.
Yep.
There's just nothing better,
Well, the energy. You just get
Yeah,
this synergy going and then you just start meeting people and everybody just gets
the
excited about
network that you
yes.
create too, right? I
Yes.
mean, you can never underestimate a good network,
Yeah.
and so that was just a lot of fun, and that was a big piece of me being able to find my voice, use my voice, not be afraid of my voice,
Mhm.
right? and and understand that really that you have some influence, right? You know, people, you have an impact, and people want to hear you, and people want to listen to your story, and don't be afraid, right? Don't be
Yeah.
shy. And so that took a while, but I think that, you know, it's always a struggle for me, public speaking, but
Mm.
it's as I've gotten older and have done it more and more, it just helps, you
You have to
know.
join
I know
Toastmasters.
exactly. I was part of Toastmasters
Oh,
before.
you
I
were.
were. I was. I mean, yes, I was. That helped me so much.
Yes,
It
it's
does.
wonderful.
It is.
It's good, like we talked about constructive criticism. A lot of people don't get any criticism, or they can't take constructive
Yeah,
criticism, and they take it as a put down as opposed to being able to look within. And I mean, wouldn't you agree that we have to look internal in order to
absolutely.
start to step out and grow?
Absolutely.
Like, kind of question maybe where our fear is coming from, or
Yeah.
why we feel we can't speak
Yeah.
when we
Or
want
like,
to.
who are they to tell me feedback? Like I'm, you know, maybe not, I'm saying too many times, right? Or something
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
But I've always, you know, I learned at Edison, I can't remember where I learned it, but that feedback is a gift,
Yeah.
right? As long as it's constructive, feedback is a gift. And that's the only way you can get better. And I read somewhere one time that, you know, there's nothing more demoralizing to an organization if you don't give real feedback, right? Because then you'll
Yes.
never learn, you'll
Yes.
never grow, and you'll stay stagnant for so long. And
Yes.
so, you know, I always try to, even now as a leader, I try to always be constructive and be fair and be open minded when I'm giving somebody feedback, especially
Mhm.
like in their performance review. Because I mean, we all think we're perfect in our own mind, right?
Yeah.
And then
Of
someone's going to tell
course.
me like, "Oh no, you're not." I'm going to be, you know. So I think it's the how you deliver that and how
Yeah.
your approach, and just, you know, I have a vested interest and a moral obligation in developing my people. I really
Mhm.
do, and I believe that, you know, and
Yeah.
I want to make them better, right? I want
Yes.
them to be their best selves
Yes.
always. And so it's not always easy with, it just depends on the person, right? But
Mhm.
then you work through things, you know, and you eventually get to a place where you can provide that feedback, and they trust you,
Right.
and you know, they know it's for the better.
I think it helps if that you care about people,
Yes.
obviously,
Yes.
right? Because then you're able to come from a more caring and empathetic place instead of like, this is where you suck. You're able to kind of build them up and then let them know where they're maybe,
Yeah.
can improve.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you don't suck. I mean, we all,
No, I
yeah.
mean, we all, right? I mean, we all have like strengths and weaknesses, right? But
Mhm.
fundamentally, it's about the people, right? They are
Yeah.
human capital assets. And without them, because we provide a service,
Mhm.
which is labor, without them being their best,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's where I come in, right? You know, I really take it in ownership of like trying to really see what their weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses are, and where can I
Mhm.
help them,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you have any like do you have anything for mental health at your place? Like if people need
Yes, we
counseling
do. We
or
have resources. Yeah. EAP resources. We have a hotline all the time. So if we have people that are struggling for whatever reason, right?
Mhm.
Just maybe just we have a hybrid policy, but maybe they're not making it in on a high, you know, on that policy, and they're not
Mhm.
meeting that policy for whatever reason. Like I will definitely always offer like the EAP 100, like, and I don't need to know anything, but just
Right.
I want them to know that there are resources beyond resources out there, and that can help them in any way, shape, or form, right? To get them
Yeah.
in a better place, you know?
Yes. So how did you decide to get back to school for your doctorate? Because you had your master's until you were in your 50s,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And then I know your dad, you mentioned, got diagnosed.
he did. Yeah. So he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, prostate cancer.
Mhm.
And like right after that, I had a good friend at Edison. His name's Paulo Pericini, and he worked for me, and we were both school bugs. So he said, you know, we had a one-on-one, and I said, so what do you want to do next? And he said, well, you know, I really want to go to school. And I said, oh, so do I. And then he said, well, I said, what do you want? What program? What are you looking into? And he said, well, there's this program at USC, and he had me at USC.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, because I grew up with my dad watching football, USC football, and
Oh,
so always a fan from
yes.
like day one.
You didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance, right? Yeah, exactly. It was in my DNA, right?
Yes.
And so I said, oh, I would love to go to USC. And he's like, well, let's look into this program. It's organizational change and development. And I said, perfect. So he looked into it, you know, just kept feeding me like, hey, you know, we've got to do this and that. And the next thing you know, we were signed up and we were accepted, right? Uh, Went to our first immersion session. There was a lady there that was 80 years old that was in the
Wow.
program.
No,
And
Yvette.
my imposter syndrome like went away just like that. 'Cause I
That's
got to tell you, I
beautiful.
said, if you could do it, what am I crying about? There's nothing for me to be crying. I'll never forget that moment. And
Yes.
that was really when my imposter syndrome, because I was so scared. I was like, how, I can't do this. Like, I'm not made of this material to go get my doctorate.
Ugh.
Like, who? No way. Like, this is not possible. Right. Like, and when she said, yeah, she stood up and said, I'm 80. And I was like, Yvette, that's your sign,
Yeah,
you
shut
know?
up.
Yeah. Shut
Shut
up
up and buckle
and
up.
buckle up. Exactly. Exactly.
I can totally relate on a smaller scale, but when I did my first half marathon, I didn't
Oh,
really train and it was like I'm just going to do it. Like I challenged myself and of course I was nervous. I'm like, what am I doing when I'm ready to take off? And then I looked around and then I saw all the like old people, some people who were like limping. I mean, they couldn't even walk great, let alone run. And like you said, it was like, okay, shut up and
right?
shut up and run.
I think that's
Like,
all done for a reason, right? Because
yes.
you got to get out of your own head. And when you see
Yes.
that, you're like, oh, stop. Just stop.
Yes.
Just,
Yes, and I think a lady speed walked faster than
well, you're my inspiration. I've always wanted to do, I got to start slow. I
me.
do
Yeah.
want to do like a 10K, then
Yes.
I'll graduate. But you are an inspiration for me.
Yeah,
So
well, I
thank
ended
you.
up doing 2 after that
Oh my
too,
goodness.
but
That's
then I was like,
amazing.
"Okay, I'm done." I
That's
did yeah, I
amazing.
got my golden
Check that off,
octopus. I
right?
got my golden
Yes,
octopus.
exactly.
Yes.
Check it off,
Check
right?
yeah, yeah,
You're
check.
done. Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, hey, thanks. See, we can inspire
It
each other,
oh, and
right?
that's what we do,
Yeah,
right?
and I did have my last guest, and we were talking about cheerleaders, and I mean, everybody needs to know that she's one of my cheerleaders. Like
I
we
am
have a
definitely
scheduled appointment,
that's
but
we do, and I look forward to it all the time. I really do. I may have to reschedule a lot, but I really do look forward to like just catching up with you because you are so motivating and
yeah.
so inspiring, and I love your drive. And I'm like, it's so contagious.
Well,
It
but
is.
that's what's amazing, right? Because you do the same for me.
Oh,
And I think that's why we need to hang out with
yeah.
people who are our age and who are accomplishing things that maybe we want to that we haven't yet
Yes.
or
Yeah.
or just doing things that are amazing, right?
That's
And being
right.
able to talk about
And
it
be
and to
like, and hey,
celebrate
my
it.
friend Anita, this is what she did, right?
Yeah.
And have that energy, like you were saying earlier, right? That
Yes.
I love that energy. I mean, there's people at work that don't have the same energy.
Yeah.
And so I got to like kind of dial it back a little bit and
Yeah.
control. And I got to know my audience. But
Yes.
I love to be around that like full throttled,
Yeah.
just driven, motivated, can do kind of attitude.
I think it's because we know how hard it is to get in
Yeah.
ourselves and for
Yes.
ourselves. So it's like it took me a long time to get this
True.
drive. Like I can't let you
Oh.
suck any of it out. Like, but can I have some of yours?
Share a little. Will you share your story?
Yeah, sure, a
That's
little.
funny. Yeah.
So that's what stopped you from your imposter syndrome, the
Yes,
80-year-old
that
woman.
80-year-old woman, and
And
I
did you
just
graduate together?
we did, we
Wow,
did.
how
I know it was beautiful. I
beautiful.
know, and I mean, I'll never forget that. Right, that was a very poignant moment in my life. That I was like, wow,
Mhm.
because I got to tell you, I was super scared. Like, I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna, it's super expensive, right,
Yeah.
to go back and get a doctorate, and I thought, God, I can't. There's no way I can spend all this money and not do good,
Yeah.
And so I just something clicked in my mind, and I remember my dad saying, "You've got to be committed," and I was like, "Okay,
And that's my next question. How did you stay committed knowing that, you know, Lou was fighting cancer
yeah,
and I mean, we're related I say because
yeah, we
your
are.
daughter's married to my brother
That's right,
and I know you've got the kids, the
yeah,
grandkids and I know how much you guys adore them and you always made time, but how did you find the time because I know getting your doctorate is a lot of work.
oh yeah,
So how did you balance because they need to know.
okay." So my routine was, there was homework every day was homework, right? But my support system, like, including you, right? Particularly my husband Randall,
Mhm.
right? Just he, cooked. He did everything that I couldn't do, right?
And he
Um
was still working at
and
this
he was
time
still
just so I
working.
could be clear.
Yes, that's right. And he was working.
Mhm.
Yes. So uh there's nothing better than a support system, and
Yeah.
he was all in. we talked about it and he
Mhm.
was all in. So he cooked our meals. He picked up the grandkids, right? When I couldn't, he would
Mhm.
pick up the grandkids and still spend time and bring them over so that at least I could see them,
Oh,
right? And spend
yes.
maybe have dinner with them, and
Yes,
then he would take
yes.
them back,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So he
I didn't know how
navigated those
that went
waters.
down. I always wondered, but
Yeah.
I know he would take them fishing and
Yeah.
stuff. So he would just give you your little
My little
fix
fix, and yeah, so we could
and then
have
get
this
out of your way
and
so
my
you
mom
can
and
get
dad too,
back to
like,
study.
okay, we're gonna have dinner here on Sunday, at 5, and so he'd pick up the grandkids, could bring them over, and then my mom and dad would come over, and then we'd have dinner, and then,
Yes.
but at least we'd have that moment that
Yeah.
in that week.
Which is so important for any family listening, right? How
Yes.
important it is to be supportive, whether
Oh,
you agree or not with like the business choices, their entrepreneurship or
yes. Whatever.
yeah, whatever.
Kids, if you have
Yeah.
kids. Yeah, I gotta be real. I couldn't have done that without him. I
Mm.
just there was no way I could do that without him.
Yeah. Well, I
He
could see
was
why.
yeah,
Because I mean, you do need that fix. You do
yeah,
need to see the kids.
yeah,
And I know Brandy's busy and which is their mother
yeah,
and their dad is busy, so they couldn't be taking them back and
yeah,
forth to
exactly.
just get a little fix and then be back.
Yeah, and we had it ended up being in this routine, right?
Mm.
I'd wake up every Saturday morning, homework every night, of course, during the week, but Saturday morning I'd wake up like maybe 4 or 5 and do work from like 5 to 1, and then call it a day, right? For the most part, sometimes I would do more later on, but call it a day, and then maybe have fun with him. Me and him would do something,
Yeah.
and then Sunday, wake up early again, do homework most of the day, and then he would go get the grandkids, and my mom would come over. Mom and dad would come over and have dinner. So
So you tried to get everything knocked out by 1 o'clock and
yeah,
then have your evening at least on the
exactly.
weekends.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then during the week, what was your schedule?
So I worked at Edison, and I'd come home maybe like 4 or 5,
Mhm.
and then I'd do homework from like, well, I had class twice a week,
Yeah.
from like maybe 5 to 10. But on the other days that I didn't have class, I'd be doing homework from maybe like 5 to 10. Just
So the days you had class, you didn't have homework.
yeah. Well, I did, but
It was
it was maybe
rollover.
deliverables that had to be delivered on the day that I had to go to class. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
maybe the day before I was doing homework that had to be delivered the next
So
day,
what time were you getting to sleep on the weeknights?
like maybe 10:30.
Okay, so that's
10:30.
not
Not too bad.
horrible.
No.
Yes, it's
It's
not like you were
doable.
staying up till 2 in the morning
That's
every
right.
night.
That's right.
And I
No.
think a lot of people have the wrong idea, right?
Yeah.
But you
'Cause
were also very focused on your schedule in the morning to
yes.
make sure that you had that time
Yes.
later and the
That
time on the
schedule, Anita,
weekends.
is like you've got to stick to it,
Yeah.
and you got to be committed to
So
it.
you time blocked.
Yes, time blocked. And I remember having a conversation with even my brothers and sisters or my brother and sister, my mom and dad and Randall, and I said, "Look, I'm going to have to take like a 2 to 3 year time out here. I'm not going to be able to go to parties as much as I've been."
Because we're good at like pressure,
Oh,
huh?
oh,
Oh,
and
it's that,
FOMO. I
yeah.
was like, FOMO. I had FOMO,
I
like, a
know,
lot of
I
times.
know.
I'm like, but I knew that if I got behind, that was going to be the worst of all. And
Hmm.
so I just did not allow myself to get behind. I
Yeah.
just couldn't.
You're on a mission.
Yep. I was just focused.
And you couldn't let the 80-year-old
Oh,
lady graduate and not you.
especially that. Like, there's no way. There's no way. Right.
And whatever drives us, right? Whatever
Yeah.
like gives us that boost to continue to go. We
Yeah.
have to grab onto something.
Yeah.
So how about your dad with his illness? How did you manage that? Because I know there was probably times, did you stick to your schedule still or like how did you
Yeah. What's
navigate that?
was interesting was I was still able to go to almost probably 99% of his appointments with him.
Oh, okay.
So Edison very lenient with me and just supported me, right? My boss that I worked for at the time.
Mhm.
She said, "You get your work done, Yvette. You do whatever you need to do."
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
I went to almost every appointment with him,
Wow.
right? And then just we were so close. We'd talk 5 times a day, me and
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
So
Well, he was a right.
that
Oh, he
I
was so
know,
sweet.
I
I
know.
have to tell a story about your
Yes,
dad because it's
yes.
so funny. So God, I wish we had a picture. How big was he? He was six
Six
three,
two, six.
six two,
Yes,
6'3". Yeah, my dad's about 6'2", 6'3". So you have these two large men. And I mean, they weren't heavy. They're just big men,
yeah.
tall and. So my dad ended up in the hospital and he said that your dad went to visit him. And he says, Mia, Big Lou, like he was his best friend, right? Big Lou came to see me. Like he's cool, he's all, but he started holding my hand.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh
Yeah,
my
he's all,
gosh.
he started holding my hand. And I want to say it because that's his
Oh,
heart, right?
right.
And my dad's all, I didn't know what to do. It's like he didn't let go. But I
Oh my
also
God, I
think it's
never knew that.
a really cute testament to like the Mexican
Oh,
machismo, right? And how
yes.
even like in our next generations, what we were talking about my last episode, is we have to allow our men to feel. Otherwise, they end up
Yeah,
like my
for sure.
dad, like he
For
was holding
sure.
my
Like, oh
hand,
my
like
God,
those amazing cakes.
awkward. Awkward.
It's
Oh my
stupid. He
gosh, I
made that
never knew
joke like
that.
dumb. Yeah,
That
my
is
dad's so
amazing.
silly.
And that, yes, I would say that that's him all the way too, you
Yeah,
know.
just so sweet. He was caring. He showed
Oh,
up. I think he took him food. Like,
oh
he
yeah.
was there. Like,
He followed um a gentleman that was homeless. I think there's a new word for it, like unhoused. I think it is
yeah, I
unhoused.
say homeless. They just
Okay,
want to make it
homeless.
sound pretty, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was homeless, and he followed him for a couple years and would intentionally buy. He bought him a bike, give him like
Really?
yes. So
Wow.
he had a huge heart,
Yeah.
huge heart.
Yeah.
He was a little stern when we were young, you know,
Mm-hmm.
very stern, and but he had a huge heart, you know, and
Yeah.
even it got better as he got older, you know,
Well, I think he realized,
that too.
after, and he had two strong
Oh
daughters.
my gosh.
So he had to,
Yes.
get over
Yeah,
whatever he had going on.
exactly. I always told my mom, yeah, I think you guys made me and my sister like way too strong. I even remember one of my friends calling me like macho woman because she's like, "Do you ever cry?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do cry," you know. But they just, I was raised so strong to be so strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like my mom raised us girls stronger than my well, it's the proof is in the pudding. Just kidding. I love you guys. I told Yvette it doesn't even matter what I say about my family because they don't watch my podcast.
They won't know
They
anyways.
won't know anyways.
That's
But
so
yeah,
cute.
they did. She did. She raised us a lot
Yeah,
stronger,
yeah,
which is kind of crazy, right? Because some people say like I know a lot of women and even you, right? Seen not heard.
yeah,
I don't remember that in my family.
yeah. No,
Not for me. I mean,
yeah.
they had me in everything,
That's perfect.
cheerleading and
Oh.
ballet and tapping and modeling and so,
And
this
so
was
look at
built.
you.
This
Yes,
was
this was in
built.
your DNA.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what inspires me about you too, is that you have this gift of gab and you shine and and I love that about you. And I'm like, that's a piece of me that I don't have that I just love that in you.
But you're getting it.
And you can teach me, right? Like
Yeah, and you're
you can
getting
help me
it.
with it.
I think
So
it's just being I put myself out there. Like I
yeah,
told you the podcast, I
exactly.
didn't wanna do it, but I heard God say, "Do it," and I was like, "Ugh," and then he made it kinda happen, so
Yeah.
and then you just get better,
Yep.
right?
As
And
as you
then
do it. Correct.
yeah,
Exactly.
and then the Toastmasters, I never
Exactly.
stopped. So, it's funny when people they do say that. I've heard a lot of, speakers say that.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, you just speak so seamlessly." And they're like, "It is not seamlessly. Like this is taking a lot of work, you know? Like you study and it's
Yeah.
it's the same kind of preparation."
Yep.
So,
Yeah. It's true. I mean, from a lessons learned, right? You want to always continue to get better. So you look at your
yeah.
recordings and like what,
Yes.
exactly. And the
Yes.
more you do it, the more, the better you get. I mean, it sounds cliche, but practice makes perfect,
The
right?
practice makes perfect. What did I hear?
Mhm.
They shouldn't say practice makes perfect. It'll come to me. But what was your biggest challenge in school?
My biggest challenge in school was, this is going to sound crazy, but I think the biggest challenge in school was my first immersion session that I had there. We had to come up with a problem of practice.
What's that?
And it was like, what are
Oh,
you
a
gonna,
problem.
yeah, what is your dissertation gonna be on, right?
Mm.
And I knew what I wanted it to be on, but trying to find trying to write it in a few sentences,
Yeah.
the way they outlined it was super difficult. And so I remember just like I probably rewrote the problem of practice 20 times before they said, okay, it's approved, right? To
Oh,
go.
they have to approve
Oh
it.
yeah, they gotta
So they
approve
kept
it.
kicking it back to
Yes,
you.
because you can develop a problem of practice, but it could be at a macro level, and it'll take you 10 years to write a dissertation. So
Oh,
you have to
okay.
have it succinct enough, right?
Yes.
And getting it succinct enough was really hard, really
So
difficult for
how
me.
how much how many words? What do they how
I
much?
don't know that it's a word limitation,
Okay,
but
so
it
what is
was
the limitation?
I don't think you had a limitation, but
No, I'm saying for the whole
oh,
thing.
oh, so I don't know that there's a word limitation for
Oh,
the whole
okay.
thing, but mine was, I think 136 pages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So it's about that.
there's a whole study in there,
Yes.
right, on women that worked at Edison and interviewed them, and I used a certain knowledge, motivation, and organizational model that I applied when I was, through
Mm-hmm.
my research, and
Yeah.
um, but that was really the hardest part, was coming up with that problem in
Yeah.
practice and making it so succinct that my dissertation wasn't going to be 10,000 pages, or
So funny. Because
yeah.
the same with Toastmasters, which is so
Really?
different, right? But you have so much time for your
That's
speech.
right. That's right.
So you have all of this you want to say, and then you have to
That's
condense
right.
it.
That's right.
And it creates a challenge, but that's what makes you so much better. And then it also makes you a better speaker
It does. It
because you're
does.
not
You're not
filling
like
in all this
word
empty
salad, all this
space.
stuff, right? Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly. Word
Yeah.
salad.
Word salad.
So I know you said you mentor. You've got your
Yes.
award. So let's talk
Yes.
about that. What did you
Okay.
get that award for?
So at the end of the day, I got the award for mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
right? Paying it forward, like I said,
Yeah.
just mentoring other women and men actually at Edison, um, through the BRG, me being active in the BRGs,
Mm-hmm.
and getting that visibility. People would reach out and be like, "Hey, Vet, can you mentor me?" And I knew I had a lot of connections,
Yeah.
through the company, and so I really wanted to help them with that, right? Just knowing like who to go to and
Mm-hmm.
start the conversation,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
getting them, like the courage to go do
I
it.
was just
That's
going to say that. Just giving them a little confidence and
Yeah,
shove goes such a long
exactly.
way.
Like, well, they're a director. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Isn't it amazing? You know that I noticed that when I went back into the workforce, there's always a hierarchy, right?
Yes.
Um, but I don't I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
To me,
That's
people are
great.
people, right?
Awesome.
But I noticed that sometimes people would look at me a certain way because I would just talk to people that I guess,
Yeah.
were somebody but I was too new.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but even if I did, it's just like, but like we're the same age. I mean, I know you've accomplished so much more, but if I didn't talk to you, how could I ever know?
That's
Like,
right.
right? And
That's right.
what you have to teach me.
Yeah.
So I just figure like I talk to everyone. I
I
mean
love that.
everyone,
I
even the
love
lady who's cleaning the bathroom, I'll
you
tell her
do.
thank you, So but
I've watched you in action too. I've watched you just talk to anybody and everybody. There's no um, qualifications of who you talk to or prerequisite of I
yeah.
mean, it's just you are just friends with anybody and everybody, right? You'll
And I
talk to
just
anybody.
don't think there should be.
There shouldn't.
But I do see a lot of people. One, you've got the people who think they're up here, so you got to
Kind of
bow down to
intimidating. It can
that.
be a little intimidating for those
Yeah.
that like me that, oh my goodness, right? They're a director. And, you know, in my older age, I don't get that anymore. But when I was
Yeah.
younger, definitely my 20s, 30s, I was like,
And that's it. I think it's
being
the
young,
age.
age,
Well, for sure it's the
age for
age.
sure.
But,
It
I've met a
is.
lot of older people who act the same. So that's when it kind of does blow my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're not in their
That's
20s
right.
or their 30s.
That's right.
They're
Yeah.
grown
I know
adults.
when you see it when you're a little bit older and you see it still and they're like your age, you're like, oh, that kind
Yeah.
of washed away, year a little bit few years ago. But yeah, there's still some people that are just stuck, and like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it
just kind of
shouldn't matter.
sad
Shouldn't
because
matter.
the more we speak to each other, the more we learn from each other, right? And the more we
That's right.
grow as
Yeah,
humans.
that's right. And keeping that curiosity gene, right? And just asking questions and being curious, right? Help you just continue to learn and
Yeah.
really understand people.
When they told me you're so good at it, you're a natural. I said it's just because I'm naturally curious.
That's right. It is. It's
Yeah.
true.
It's because I'm naturally curious, so I don't have to think of the questions. They come naturally because
Yes.
I want to know.
Yep.
Like I want to know how you figured it out and
Yeah,
how you
exactly.
did it. And
Exactly. And you don't just think about like I want to know, but you actually take action. Like
yeah.
you're taking action about like how do I, you're doing research and I see you in action,
Yeah. Well, I end up falling down the rabbit hole, as they say. And then it's like, if it's a topic I love, it's like, tell me more, tell me more. And then, and who and
Right.
what.
Yeah.
And then you find the next book and the next author.
Goes
And
on and on
oh, yeah.
and you just, create that mental capacity that's just wonderful,
You know, and it's so crazy because like they say, right? In an age of information, there's no excuse for ignorance.
That's right.
Like it's all out there.
That's
All you
right.
have to do is ask the question to Google and
That's right.
she'll send you to YouTube or something. But
Yes,
there's multiple answers to a question and you can search them all and then decide which one fits or where you want to
yep,
go next.
exactly.
But we have to search and we have to be curious.
Yeah.
How did you stay curious?
Good question. I think just, the more I saw the change that I aspired to see at Edison,
Mhm.
the more curious I got and the more questions I would ask. Like, wow,
Mhm.
Yvette, you can really have an influence here. And you do have an influence here. People are coming to you, they want you to mentor them. It kind of feeds you and you
Yes.
want to just keep like learning and growing and
So
like,
you start
where am I going with this? And how,
Mm.
what's going to end up, where's this going to, what's going to transpire from this? And
So then it becomes kind of the excitement of
it
seeing what's
does.
gonna
It does.
transpire,
It
huh?
does. It
Yeah, but
does.
it does sometimes take that boost, like, "Wow, I do have something of value to give. They do find value in what I'm saying. I am helping people."
Yes.
And then realizing, like, you can help change people's lives
Yeah,
in
exactly, Anita. And I know it sounds cliche, but if we could, you or I could change one person's life, it's like, amen, right?
Amen,
We've done
because you
it.
don't know who the one person is gonna change and who that one person is gonna change.
Yeah.
You've got I mean,
Yeah.
hey, that I always say that's why my foundation, one heart at a time.
That's right.
That
That's
one
right.
heart can become the
Oh,
president and
perfect.
change the world,
Yep.
you know?
I remember a girl at Edison came up to me and she was like, Yvette, you've been such an inspiration to me. I've watched you grow here at Edison and I didn't think I would ever go to school, but you motivated me to go back to school. She goes, and I'm graduating with my bachelor's in a month. And I was like, I mean, I would have never in a million years, if she didn't say anything to
Yeah,
me, ever thought I
no.
had that influence or impact on her. And now, when I was leaving, she was going back for her master's. So
Wow.
I,
And that's just something so important for people
it
to know
is
too, right?
so
Like we don't
fulfilling.
always know who we're helping. We
That's
don't
right.
always know who's
You don't.
watching, but you're inspiring somebody somewhere
Yep. That's right.
just by living your life
That's
and
right.
just by staying true
You're
to
right.
who you are and on course and
Hmm.
following your dream, whatever that dream may be,
So
right?
true.
That there's somebody, and there's more than one person.
Yeah.
There is always more than one
Oh,
person.
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, there's nothing better than that, right? Being able to, if you can create good in somebody
Mm-hmm.
and, help them through whatever they may be going through, or
Yeah.
just, I'm happy, that's fulfilling
Yeah.
for me, gratifying.
Yes. So what do you want next for yourself? Like do you see yourself? I know you said you want to be retired in a couple of years and
Yeah,
you're traveling all the time.
I
You guys just got back
know.
from
We
Africa.
did. Yeah,
An
were
amazing
able to
trip.
take an African safari. So that was on my bucket list for like 10 years. And we
Yeah.
finally got to fulfill that one. So that was amazing. We're going this month on the 16th to Japan, Singapore, and the Philippines. So
Oh,
super excited about
yeah.
that. I know. And we've got that travel bug in us, right?
I
And that's
know.
what we like to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it depends on what you like to do. And so that's just our jam. And we like to
What do
do
you
that.
find the most rewarding about traveling?
The people, and the culture,
Hmm.
just understanding and immersing yourself in their culture and really learning and enjoying how they live and seeing how they live.
Do you think it grows you as a human being? Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In what sense would you say?
Um, like being open-minded, being
Yeah.
open-minded to different, cultures and people and respecting them, is just amazing.
Would you say when you've traveled, you've found people in other countries to be more respectful than Americans?
It depends. Yeah. And there's like in Africa,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
they don't have a bad bone in their body. They're just the nicest, kindest, most generous people you would ever meet. At least for me when I went.
Yes.
And then you'll go to, maybe just another state. And I remember um, we were in New York and we were in a Denny's and it's all about your experience, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember sitting there with my mom and dad, and this was years ago, but sitting there for like 20 minutes. And I finally raised my hand and said, "Hey, we're ready to order." And she said, "Okay, we'll be there." Right. And didn't come for like another 20 minutes. And so uh, I love New York. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, right? But it was that experience that was like, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly, and
Yeah, and that could have happened
it
anywhere,
could happen
right? It just
anywhere to
happened to
anywhere.
you
It
in New
just,
York. I
yeah,
know, I love New York too.
I do too. I love New
But
York.
yes, but they're just a different breed, I think. I mean, we
Exactly.
talk about being fast paced here. Like, no, they're
And I'm
like
sure they think that of us, right? We're a
exactly.
different breed.
Yeah. exactly.
They want their food now. Like, hold your horses. We'll get to you.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. But you do want a mentor
I
for
do.
sure.
I
How
do.
do you plan on achieving that? Like, do you want a mentor outside? Is there a way people can get a hold of you doing that yet? Are
Yeah.
you
So
possibly like maybe moving towards coaching in the future? Like, what are your
good questions. I mean,
dreams?
those are all like on, part of the whole vision board,
Okay.
and but wherever I
I
can,
see it. That's why I'm asking. So
yeah,
maybe I'm kind of
yes,
feeding that
nudging me
seed
that way.
or
Yeah,
watering.
yeah. And I mean, because I think that I I I had so much help when I was
Yes.
young, and I needed that. And you and I had a conversation earlier about going to school, and I didn't have that
Mhm.
guidance, and so just being able to help, young girls, boys that are like 17, 18ish that really need that direction or
Yeah.
guidance or help, like, and want to go to school but don't really know where to start. I'd
Yes.
love to help them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I do mentor people still from Edison, and I mentor people at Ford Liberty at my current company. And even my grandkids, right? I'm always trying to mentor
Yeah.
them, and trying to get them to think right, and
That's the best part
it
about growth,
is.
isn't it? Being able to take back what you've learned to your
Oh my God,
family and to your
yes. To
grandkids
make
and to
everybody
your
around you better,
kids.
right?
Yeah. And it's just
It
knowledge.
is. It's just knowledge. It
But not
is.
everybody has access to that corporate knowledge, that mindset, because
Yes,
corporate's all mindset, real estate's all
it is. That's
mindset.
right.
And once you start reading those books and you start diving into how powerful you are as a human, it's just like,
It's incredible.
I am made in his
That's
image.
right.
Like, damn, even
Yeah,
more than I
for
even
sure. Oh
expected,
my God.
right? Like I actually have
Yeah.
superpowers
Yeah.
if you really start to dig deep and study
Yeah.
what we are capable
It's
of
all
as
about
human
growing, right?
beings.
Too, and
Yeah.
finding about yourself more and more every day, and like your potential, and
Mhm.
I mean,
And then every time, right? I know you have to admit, I know you agree. Every time you like conquer one goal, the next one just gets easier. And even if it doesn't get easier, you just know how good you're going to feel after you finish
yes,
it.
yes. You want more, right?
Yeah,
You just
it's
want more.
like
Like
an adrenaline
it
rush.
is. It is very much.
So I want to quickly get to like how many years did it take when you got your bachelor's to when
Okay.
you got your doctorate?
Okay. I got my bachelor's, I believe it was in 2010, and then my master's in 2014, and
Okay.
then went back to school in 2018, so 4 years later, and then graduated in 2021 with
But I mean, that was a long
a
time.
long. That's what I mean. I was like, take a class here, take a class there, right?
Yeah, but you
Um,
did
and
it,
I
which
did it.
mattered. Like, it doesn't matter how
Yeah,
long it takes,
that's
right?
noise, right? What we talking about earlier, like
Yes.
that doesn't matter. Nobody cares that it took you 10 years or whatever. It's you
Now
did
you're a
it,
doctor.
and
Like,
nobody
yeah.
can take it away from you,
And no,
right? Nobody can
yeah.
take it. Yeah.
So that young girl who maybe is sitting there with imposter syndrome right now, and or
Oh,
like the older woman who's like, "Ugh, I don't want to go back to school. Like it's going to be so much work." I mean, what advice or what words of wisdom do you just want to give 'em? Maybe we could start with the younger girl, right? Let's
yeah.
start with the
I think for the younger girl is find a mentor, right? Find
Mhm.
a mentor. Don't waste time swirling, and
And where could they go? Where would you recommend they find a mentor?
they could come to me if they wanted to.
Okay.
They could come to me
And they can find
first,
you
and then
on
I can
your
help them. Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes, they can come to me, and I would be more than happy to handhold them through the whole entire process. And I know for me, it would be so rewarding
Yes.
to get them off to,
Yes.
a program wherever whatever they're good at, learning at what they're
Yes.
good at, and then, helping them navigate their way,
Yeah, the process.
Yes, the process.
And would you say the same applies to the older woman as far
Um,
as mentoring? Or
you know, um,
I know it's a
it
very
could
different
be,
life, right?
yeah,
Because,
and
maybe kids, husband, more
right, and it might be
responsibilities, so
just
they
me
might not be so
mentoring on
focused.
that about like how to really how to get your support system in line, right? If you really are
Mhm.
committed to doing this,
Mhm.
here's what you're going to need to do, right? You're
Mhm.
going to have a support system. You're going to have a schedule, right? You have to be committed.
I did do that with one of my friends because it was funny. I thought I was getting on the call because she was going to do something for me. But then she was like, no, remember you did that thing for me? Like I did a coaching exercise.
Right.
She's like, I wanted more of that. And I was like, oh, I said, I wasn't prepared. I'm like, but you know what? And then I went down some things. I'm like, okay, do this, do this, do this, and do this. And then when you got this down, then we'll talk.
That's right. Just like
Yeah.
as simple as that. But people don't even have that. They
Yeah.
don't even know
Right.
where to start. I
Right.
mean, and I am only talking because that was me.
Me
I
too.
didn't know where to start at all.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you earlier, right? I went to all these different colleges because just trying to figure out like, what am I good at? What do I
Yeah.
want to do? And kind of swirled,
That's a good question. Do you take personality profile tests? I'm sure you had
do.
in corporate,
We
right?
do.
So you probably, before you even started your job, you had to take one.
Yes.
Yeah, your interview
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Okay, so when I was 18, I had to take one, and for my first interview at Kent Landsberg in Montebello. Let's go figure with my dad, right? I was going to go with my
Yes.
dad, but they gave it to me, and I was hooked after that. I have never stopped taking personality profiles since then, and I really believe that that's helped me in a sense when I decided I was like the student was ready,
Oh, yeah,
right?
right.
Then it like
You're
after
like,
all that,
hey.
after I got through the damage part, I'm like, Anita. But I love them. And anytime anybody calls me, I send them the personality
That's
profile
perfect.
because it's like you have to learn about yourself first.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You have to see your strengths and your weaknesses. And I believe in them so well. That's why I send them because they are right
Well, they're
on.
spot on.
They're spot on.
Spot on.
Which
You
one?
can take it 10 times and they're spot on.
Yes. And it doesn't matter which ones you take.
Doesn't matter which ones
They
you
all, I
take.
took a leadership one. I've taken,
They're
Myers
spot
Briggs.
on.
I've taken, and they've all got my
Yeah.
strengths and weaknesses.
They do.
And
They
it's
do.
wild.
That self-awareness piece, I think that so many people lack these days are
Mhm.
just, and even from an accountability standpoint, just they don't have it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so learning about yourself and, it not only helps you learn about yourself, but it also helps you learn about others that are maybe a different personality type and how to
Yes.
work with them, right? How to
Yes.
approach them. And
Yes.
that's really where I think I benefited too. Like I can't remember which one it was, but I was an ESTJ. That was the acronym.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
Myers Briggs.
Right. I forget the
I believe.
thinker or whatever. And
Mhm.
so I found that providing details to engineers really helped me, right? Because I'm not a real detailed person.
Mhm.
I'm more higher level, like visionary, but
Mhm. See, I'm a
providing,
visionary.
yeah,
That's my
providing details to
personality
engineers when I'm working with them really helped me a lot because they're details,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that I remember going, oh, I'm going to give this whole spreadsheet to them. And I'm thinking they're not going to appreciate it. But then I learned, I'm like, they're engineering group. They're going to appreciate it more than you. And definitely they did. So
Yeah. And it's
great.
just like the personality types, right?
Yes.
Knowing the different
Yeah,
personality types, the driver.
for sure.
Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
exactly.
So what do you have a favorite? That's what I was getting at. Or do you've taken them, but you don't really?
No, I don't have a favorite. I mean, they all, at the end of the day, just
Yeah.
really show you who you are, right? And
Yes.
help you learn more about yourself. And,
Yeah.
but they're spot on, like you said.
Yeah.
It's just crazy because they can ask you the same question 10 different ways. And it's
They're always
still-
trying to
because
trick
and
you,
you're
it
kind of
feels
trying to
like.
trick them sometimes,
Yes,
right? But
yes.
it's like, it doesn't work. I don't know how.
I love it. I
I
do.
do too.
And I do love, like, it's great if you're going to date somebody too, how you're like,
Exactly.
fill this
You
out,
just-
please.
You need to be an ESTJ.
We see if we instead of the
Exactly.
horoscope.
It's true. It's at the end of the day, it couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
to know somebody as well as you need to know somebody is.
So would you agree then maybe that's where everybody should start, right?
Oh,
Kind of just getting
yeah.
to know themselves a little better.
Yourselves. Yep. That self-awareness piece
Yeah.
that people lack. A lot of people lack, including,
Yeah.
even me. I'm learning about myself all the time.
Oh,
And
every
so
day.
every day.
But we should, right?
Yeah,
We
we
should
should
be
be learning and
evolving.
growing.
We should be growing. We should be changing. And I think
Yes.
that's, it was really funny because my sister used to always tell me, you're so fake. And I'm like, why do you call me fake? And she's like, "Ugh." She's like, you don't talk like that with your friends. I'm all, oh, really? Well, I'm on a business call. Like, how to be like, what's up, bitch? Like,
Got to know your audience.
you've got to
right?
know your audience. So there's nothing about being fake. It's being a professional. It's having emotional intelligence
right.
and
That's
just
right.
like knowing your audience.
Yep. And if people don't learn that, you obviously learned it, but if people don't learn that, their perception is, oh, you're fake, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about like learning.
Yes.
There's so much that people lack. And so if you don't have access to that and you're not learning that and
Yeah.
growing, you could very much
I'm
think
thinking.
of have a
I'm
different
on.
perception of it.
I'm on. Maybe that's why I took so many personality profiles. Am I fake? Who am I? What the?
Tell me I'm not
Tell me
fake.
I'm not fake.
That is hilarious.
That is funny.
Oh my gosh.
So your family was amazing. What if somebody's family isn't so amazing? Have you dealt with that? Like, have you what advice would you give somebody? Like, how would you get them to maybe sit down with their family? Like, would they have a family meeting? What advice could you give someone who's saying, like, I'm going to do it, whether they like it or not,
Yeah.
but how to approach it in a
Yeah. And
constructive way?
I think, it worked for me, but just being able to communicate that to my family, like, hey, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be in lockdown for 3 years. Because, we have parties all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted them to know that I'm going to be studying. And so there's going to be times when I'm not going to make your parties, and it's not because I don't want to,
Yep.
but because I have to have my head in the books. And but just give me 3 years, right? And I'll be
Just
done,
three
and then I'll
years.
come back, right? And so I think just having that respectful conversation and communication really helped,
And
me.
respecting yourself enough to make everybody respect your time,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Isn't that huge?
yes. That was huge.
Because we
Yes,
do. We have to just
yep,
know, like, because it was very difficult for me.
yeah.
Like, oh my God, they're out there. They know I'm in
There,
here. Like, oh my God, I'm just being rude. I'm not gonna, should I go say hi? But
it's
if I
so
go
true.
say hi, I'm going to be out there for a half
Right,
hour. Yeah. So
exactly.
you got all these things going on. So being able to shut down and just
Yep.
focus on who you want to be,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Who
I mean,
you're.
you can mitigate that too, like like having that meeting,
Mhm.
so people then they won't come over because they know, like, oh, she's studying. You know what I mean? So you don't
Yeah.
even have to deal with that then, right? It'll mitigate a lot of it, and it
Yes.
did. So
So they can find you on LinkedIn,
yes,
and her LinkedIn is posted.
yes.
So I hate to wrap up, but we need to go. This has been so fun. I loved
Oh,
having you
thank you,
on,
Anita. Like,
Yvette. It's
oh my God, I look
awesome.
forward to this for so long, and I know I had to reschedule a couple times, but forgive me, and
Oh
I'm
God,
elated to
it's
be here,
okay.
and especially with you, who I look up to so
Oh,
much, and thank you so much for bringing me here and doing my first podcast, and then this is just
girl, you just gave me so much. I'm like a doctor. Like looks up to
I
me.
am not kidding. Really, at the end of the day,
Uh,
with all sincerity, yes.
I love you.
Oh, I
I
love
love
you
you.
too. I love you.
Okay. All right, we're all hearts. How
I
cheesy.
love you.
All right,
I love you.
guys.
Thank you.
Subscribe, like, and comment, please.
Bye bye.
Bye.